3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, and welcome to the Countless Benefits of Mentoring. This is slightly different than our usual tech talk series, but no less important to your personal and professional development. So I thank you all for joining today. So a little bit about me and sort of what qualifies me to give this talk to you. My name is Mark Runyon. I am a principal consultant with Improving. I also write for a few different publications, the Enterprisers Project, InformationWeek, and recently got on with Dark Reading. I tend to write around topics concerning IT management, application development, the cloud, as well as AI. I've been kind of camped out in the AI space for a little while, and I have 3 upcoming articles for those publications coming out this next month pertaining to ethics in AI, starting an AI project, and what can AI do about fraud. So some kind of interesting things. If you are so inclined, please check them out. Outside of that, I've been doing application development work for 20 years, mainly in the recently in the Angular Web API and SQL Server space. And I run the Atlanta App Dev in the Cloud meetup. But pertaining to our topic at hand, my credentials for leadership are I've been running technical teams for the past 10 years. For the past 4, I've been working on a client account here at Improving and been the technical lead of a team of 12. And we have kind of an interesting program at Improving called Deliberate Leadership. And it's not in lockstep, say, a mentoring program, but it definitely has mentoring components to it. And it's been a very welcome thing since I've joined this organization, and since we have merged with Improving. Prior to, we were Innovative Architects here in Atlanta, and it offers something that not a whole lot of other organizations have. So it was kind of the seed from that led to the original article I wrote on this topic, and that which became this presentation. So so pretty proud of what we're doing in that space, and we'll discuss some of that today. So let's go ahead and dive into what is mentoring. So I thought the best place to start would be the Wikipedia definition. Just this kind of sums up what most people think of when they think of mentoring. So let's basically just read it. Mentorship is a relationship in which a more experienced or more knowledgeable person helps guide a less experienced or less knowledgeable person. It is a learning and development partnership between someone with vast experience and someone who wants to learn. I take kind of concern with this definition because it is implying that mentorship is a one-way street, that the mentor is giving and giving and giving and never getting anything in return. And there's no other parties getting anything in return, say the organization. And nothing could be further from the truth. It is a working relationship really between all 3 parties, and they all have something to gain from that experience. And by pigeonholing it into this one, this one benefit, we really miss the greater picture of what mentoring can do for all of us, and why we would want to do it, and why we should make it a priority for our organization and for us, and for working with the people who we want to help in their professional development. So why is mentoring important? So per the Harvard Business Review, employees who with mentors reported a higher compensation, greater levels of promotion, more commitment and satisfaction in their careers, more positive feelings about the organization and its management. So I'm not sure about you, but that's pretty much the whole ball of wax of things we are trying to accomplish as an organization, how to help fulfill and how to grow our people. And we have lots of different corporate initiatives that try to accomplish all of these different goals, but this one thing can help us drive that home. And thus, we should really try to prioritize that within our organizations and make sure that it is kind of a front and center benefit that we offer to our employees. Also, from the retention front, high achievers in large organizations cited lack of mentorship as the chief reason why they left their last job. I mean, I don't know about you, but I really love working with high achievers because they bring a lot to the table. You know, they make everyone around them better. They challenge you. They bring those interesting perspectives to the table, and they really take pride in their work. I mean, these are the last people we can afford to lose from our teams. And so making them happy makes the entire organization better and helps us to achieve our goals and helps us to be more effective in everything that we do. So if this initiative can help solidify and sort of lock those people into place, then it's really the least we can do to for our best people and to help keep them around. So when we talk about benefits of mentorship, I mentioned it before, but we're really talking about 3 different areas. So we're going to look at the mentor, the mentee, as well as the organization. And I have heard it brought up in the past when I've given this talk. Some people feel like the mentorship label has kind of fallen out of vogue, and maybe it's more career coach now and whatever else. And it's not necessarily important. It's more of kind of a semantic detail. It's the driving force behind it. We're talking about several different labels to say the same thing. So, you know, think about it in your head, however is most comfortable to you. But I will be referring to it basically as mentorship for the rest of the hour. So first off, we want to look at the benefits to the mentor, because that's really something that's hugely overlooked and nobody really zeroes in on, you know, what exactly does the mentor get out of this relationship? So in the traditional corporate environment, there tends not to be a lot of great areas to jump into leadership and to really embrace those areas to grow and to become a leader. Usually how it works is somebody kind of works their way up through the ranks and they're very competent in what they do. And then the next logical step for them is to go into a team lead or some other sort of leadership type position. And I would argue that's the worst way to groom and to promote our leaders, because we have no idea if they're going to be effective in that position until we throw them into it. And that brings a lot of risk to us, to our teams, to our organizations, because we don't know that this person is set for this job. Maybe they were just really good at what they did before, and maybe that's the best place for them. They don't necessarily need to get bumped up to that next level that we don't know that they're going to perform and achieve at. So the nice thing about mentorship is it gives us that breeding ground to grow our next leaders. It's a very low risk environment. So if I'm working with somebody else and I give them bad advice, the worst thing that's going to happen is we got to deal with the situation at hand. If I'm a VP of a software development group and I make a wrong decision, it could affect the entire organization. It could set us back, you know, months in our progress. So again, we want to make sure that we cut our teeth in this lower risk environment and we don't bring these problems to when they really matter. And also the nice part about the mentorship platform is it's kind of a chain of command kind of thing. So if I'm working with somebody and they come to me with an issue that they're dealing with, I have my own perspective of how I would deal with it, but I may go to my more senior manager and ask them, hey, Joe is having this issue with his coworker and he's having a really tough time. Here's how I was going to give him some advice on how to approach it. But before I did, I want to kind of run this by you, just to you have a more seasoned perspective and help me polish this. And maybe you can help me see some things that I'm not seeing. So it's a nice way to groom and to build these leaders through everyday interactions with the people that they're working with, and to really grow them to the point where they are ready to take on that next level of responsibility. And we know that once they're there, they're going to succeed because they've already succeeded in the past and they've already been living into that role. This statistic I thought was very telling, that 75% of executives credited mentorship as a driving force in helping them reach their position. So the people who are already in those positions, they realize the benefit that mentorship gives to the organization. And thus, we should be kind of taking that top-down approach of here is how we can breed that next generation of leaders within our organization and help the best people stick around. Also, mentorship exposes mentors to a fresh perspective. So if we look at this kind of circle of life thing we have going on here, the mentor is obviously bringing along their years of experience and advice. They're devoting time to helping someone get established, which is hugely helpful. It makes you feel good. And we were all there at one point in time. We want to help people get over their hurdles and not make those mistakes that we all made, and make their lives easier and make them more productive and better members of our team. But it doesn't stop there. There's this whole other side of things of what the person being mentored brings from their side. So they're bringing different perspectives, approaches, and ideas. I know from my perspective, but like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, and therefore I have 20 years worth of baggage that I bring along with me, things that have worked well for me in the past, or if it isn't broken, don't fix it kind of things. But it doesn't necessarily mean that my approaches are necessarily the best approaches. Maybe I'm a little set in my way of thinking, and a younger person could come in and say, well, have you thought about this? There's this new technology that I just read about. Maybe it might work for our situation, and help us look at some different perspectives and bring some things in that maybe if some of our more veteran leaders might be a little stuck in their ways, they might have a little bit harder time deviating. So also they help challenge assumptions. So if as an organization, we have to work within the confines and the boundaries of the limitations that we have. So if 3 years ago we implemented a certain solution that wasn't necessarily the best, but it was the best for the constraints that we were working with, possibly 3 years later, those constraints aren't there anymore. We've made improvements in our technology stack and our infrastructure, and it's worth revisiting that. But we all get stuck in the day-to-day minutia of things, and we find ourselves not necessarily asking those questions and revisiting them. Having somebody new come into the team can really shed light on, why are you guys doing this? What is the logic behind it? And make us kind of reevaluate those assumptions and come at it fresh. So next, we want to look at the benefits to the mentee. Truthfully, when we talk about that, we normally just think of the one benefit, which is providing guidance, but there's a lot more to it than that very narrow-minded focus on this benefit. So first of all, increased visibility within the organization. So if a new member comes onto the team, they're very green. They're not a person that has already made an impact and showed that I'm somebody to watch and I'm somebody to focus on. Their contributions may not be on the same level as more seasoned members of the team, and therefore the things that they do to make an impact could be misattributed to somebody else. They could be completely overlooked. And the problem with that is when we underappreciate and we don't focus that light on the great things that people are doing, the next time it comes time to really go that extra mile or overachieve, they may decide, why should I do this? Why should I kill myself? Why should I put in those extra hours? Because there's no real benefit to me. So we want to make sure that our newest associates are always getting the credit that they deserve, and that we are following up and taking that not only to say a team lead position, but we want to push that accolade all the way up the ladder as much as possible, so that everyone from the CIO on down knows the great work that our newest people are doing. So a mentor can serve as the advocate for those people. They can be their biggest cheerleader, and really, when they meet with senior level management, can pull out those accomplishments and say that this person has really been knocking the ball out of the park, and they look like potentially one of our superstars, if we nurture them and we do the proper things to help them along with their career. So the problem here being is if we don't do that, then after a while, that person becomes nothing more than a cog in a machine. And as we all know, cogs are replaceable. There's nothing special about them. Nobody likes to feel like they're just an interchangeable piece of the overall whole. And thus, a year, 2 years down the road, I might decide I'm making an impact, but nobody's seeing it. Therefore, why should I stay with this organization? Maybe it's time to go look someplace else. So this is probably the thing that most people think of when it comes to mentorship, and it is a huge benefit. Having those 20 years of experience, or whatever it may be, really serves the person being mentored very well to provide that perspective, to give them a soundboard or second set of eyes. And this doesn't necessarily have to be on where's my career trajectory going. It could just be everyday kind of things. I'm having a problem with this project manager. They're not allowing me to express how long this feature is going to take. How do I deal with that? It doesn't necessarily have to be earth-shattering things. It's just, how do I do my job better? How do I learn? How do I be more effective? And a mentor can help provide some feedback there and help facilitate and remove roadblocks at times. So this is obviously a very key piece of mentorship. And also, a mentor can help you nurture your talents. Maybe there's certain things that you do very well and will be very be a vehicle for your success in the future. So by pointing those things out and offering tips and suggestions for building on those skills, they can help you really expand what you do well. And also, they may point out things that's maybe holding you back. Maybe it could be something as simple as maybe you need to dress a little bit better. Maybe what you're saying through your clothes is a little bit less than professional, and it's not going to get you to where you want to go. And sometimes those conversations can be uncomfortable, but at the end of the day, they're helpful, and they definitely should be tactful conversations and something done for the good of the person and for getting to those longer term goals that they are trying to achieve. And that's really the whole drive of it all. There are going to be times when you have to get outside of your comfort zone, when you have to work towards these better things to help grow yourself. And a mentor is there to push you and to help you see the things that you might not be seeing yourself. It also creates an instant web of contacts within the organization. I kind of equate this to kind of like that first day of high school. For me, it was, we got transferred over to a different school district. So that first day I walked in the lunchroom, I knew not a soul in the place. It's very uncomfortable. And that's how I view new people coming into the organization. You have this whole web of relationships already built, people that have worked together for 1, 3, 5 years, and they've been in the trenches together. They have commiserated over late night sprints and dealt with critical bugs, and that has all built this team to be strong and as a tight-knit group. And trying to inject a new person into this already functional ecosystem can be tough if we don't allow them to kind of we need to figure out a way for them to take root and have their own personality and have their own impact within this team that's already existing. So the mentor can serve as an anchor to help make those connections and help introduce them to other people, help find common areas of interest, and try to not make them not feel like an outsider and somebody that's just completely detached from what's going on in the larger whole. They can also assist in knowledge transfer and reinforce cultural norms within the organization, because a lot of times those things are we just operate, and we don't necessarily tell our new people, here's how we do things, here's what's expected of you. you just kind of have to figure it out going along, and that can cause its own set of problems. If you think things are one way and you're doing something else, and we've all been there. It's a frustrating place to be as a new person, because you're getting chastised for something that nobody ever really expressed, that this was not the right way to do things. So it can smooth out a lot of these transitional problems that don't need to be taking place within the organization. Just by having that person as the go-to to say, here's how we do things. If you ever have any questions about how things are done, please reach out to me. I'm always here for you. Let me help you with this transition. And at the end of the day, we want to make sure that this person is taking root in the organization. We want this person to be our next great team member. And if we don't integrate them within the group, and we don't do a good job onboarding our people, then a year down the road, they may decide I don't feel like a part of this. This was a wrong decision on my part, and maybe I need to reevaluate and go find someplace else to go. And if we consider the cost of bringing on a new person, the IT recruiter charges 20% of their first year salary. The cost involved in training this person, I mean, it's considerable to bring somebody new on board. We need to do everything in our power to make sure that they are lined up for success, and we aren't just throwing them to the wolves and saying, good luck, we hope you succeed, and not giving them the tools to really see that success. So finally, our third measure of benefits, we're going to look at the organization itself. It's come up several times throughout, but explicitly, what does the organization get from this? Why would an organization want to have a mentorship program per se? So first, we talked about the idea of retention when we were discussing high achievers. And a few interesting statistics that I pulled. 68% of millennials stayed with a company for over 4 years who had a mentor. So if you know millennials, they tend to job hop, some of them. And so this is a pretty nice measure to show that this is seen as very hugely beneficial to them and something they want in their career. And then also 62% of employees who had 1 to 5 work friends were more likely to reject a job offer, and that number rose to 70% to 6 or more. So this is what we were talking about 2 slides ago, helping build those relationships and helping build that web of contacts that go beyond just the day-to-day code reviews and just the things that you do at work. It's helping people to get together for happy hours, after hours, and really build relationships that are more than just surface level and having to do with my job. And if I didn't have to deal with you, then I don't want to, kind of things. So we really want to try to grow that community within our organization to help reinforce and keep our great people around. And it can be a real benefit because when you walk in the door, we're kind of giving you a blueprint. Here's what your career could look like if you joined our organization. And you don't see that very often within companies, which leads us to the next piece, aiding in talent acquisition. In my opinion, mentorship programs should be sold just like a benefit, like a 401k benefit, a healthcare benefit. These are things that people expect, but as we see in our other statistic here, 76% of workers viewed having a mentorship as important to their overall success. So by showing that this is something that we offer and that your professional development your career development is important to us, we are lining ourselves up to recruit the best people and to show them that we're not just some other company. We are a company who care about our people, and we really put our money where our mouth is. And the other statistic here, 54% of workers don't have a mentor. So as you can see, we have a nice little gap here of 22% between people who view it as important to have a mentor versus those who don't. So by offering this, we really set ourselves apart from the next company down the road who may be offering you this candidate, an extra $3,000 a year, or whatever else, you know, there's more to the equation than just money. Are you fulfilling me? Are you setting me up for success? Are you helping me achieve my longer term career goals? And this is one of those things that can do that. So we've really focused on mentorship within the organization at this point. And as we just saw on that last slide, I've neglected, what was the exact figure? I've neglected 46% of you thus far. So I'm going to correct that from here on out. So what exactly would you do if your company doesn't have a mentorship program? My suggestion, if you're somebody who's looking to take steps into leadership, this is a great thing to suggest to your senior level management. You could go to them and say, hey, I heard this awesome presentation on Friday about mentorship, and I think it could really benefit our organization. Is this something we have thought about in the past? And if it is something we are interested in, can you let me take lead on this initiative? Definitely a great way to help you along in your career. But assuming the powers that be come back and say, no, we don't see the value for whatever reason, then it's really up to you. You have to chart your own course, and you have to prioritize this within your life. So exactly how would you go about finding a mentor if it was just up to you? So a few things to look at. You usually have a pool, a network around you of contacts that these are people you admire, people you look up to, people who are in the job that you're trying to achieve. So it's good to kind of group those people together as you start going through that list and figuring out who might be the best candidate to help you out with this. You know, as we said, well, great thing to look at is try to figure out what your career is going to look like in the next 3, 5, 10 years, and then trace it back. Who's already in those positions? Who's already gotten there? Who's taken that path already and dealt with the challenges that are going to come along that you're going to find yourself in the years ahead? Those are great candidates of people to look for. Also, look for people who have similar strengths as you. So, or similar challenges, can be that as well. So if you are, say, an introverted person, it may not be the best to look for the extroverted salesperson as a mentor, because they're not necessarily going to realize some of the challenges that you will deal with as an introverted person. They're very specific to that personality type, and not to rule that person out, but just realize that they might not be able to identify with some of the things that you're going through. Also, we all know that in technology that diversity is challenging. So if you're a woman, you're a minority, it can be very helpful to work with a mentor who is also, you know, a woman or a minority, to help get that same perspective, that can see the challenges that you're going through, can help you identify future challenges that you're going to have that somebody who's not in that space won't be able to realize. So, you know, just something to keep in mind. Also, before we kind of leave this, one thing I do need to highlight is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. A mentor is traditionally viewed as somebody sort of almost outside the organization, whereas a sponsor is somebody who's maybe one or two levels up the chain from you within your organization. So this is a person who could give you a raise, a job promotion, you know, something of that nature. And when you're considering somebody, it's best to kind of keep in mind that the sponsor does have some limitations when it comes to giving you guidance, giving you advice. Say you are unhappy with your current job. It's not working for whatever reason. Going and dumping this all on your direct manager, if they're your mentor, and talking about, I'm looking for other positions and I don't know if this is the right place for me long term. To a degree, that could be helpful. That might lead to change and helping you to transition to something that's more fulfilling, more better for your career. But on the other side of things, you could cause alarm bells just to go crazy, and you may not have a job when you come in on Monday. So having a mentor, somebody outside the organization that you don't necessarily report to, can give you that unfiltered third-party perspective that's not going to be coming through the lens of the organization and how this is going to affect the team and all the baggage that comes along with that. So when you're considering, kind of keep those things in mind of kind of the limitations and the flexibility within, you know, each a sponsor versus a mentor. Next comes the ask. So the ask is, it can be a little nerve-wracking, kind of like asking somebody out for a date, or, you know, it's been a while for me, but I know back in the day that was a very tense thing. Basically, you're putting yourself out there, and you are asking them you're asking somebody to help you out and to take time out of their schedule and to help directly influence where your career path is going to go. So the first thing to say is, we are giving that person an option. This is not an obligation. We aren't, there's no expectation that they are going to say yes. No is a very valid answer. If you're anything like me, there are times in your life where it just seems like chaos. There's so many things going on. And if you hit me on a certain day, I may be like, I can't imagine taking on another responsibility right now. I have so much on my plate, and timing may just be really bad. On the other side of it, there are some people that mentorship really isn't their thing. They're not into it, and you definitely don't want to force those people to try to fit into that role, because they're not going to be effective in it, and that's okay. We need to realize where people are at and not try to make them something that they're not. So we want to find somebody who's going to be effective in this role and going to help us out. So a no isn't a reflection on you. A no can just be, I am super busy and I can't do it right now. But we want to make sure that we thank them for the consideration. We leave that door open for future opportunities, and we don't do anything to taint that relationship, because 6 months down the line, you never know. Their schedule may open up and they may circle back to you and say, hey, I know we talked about that 6 months ago. You've been a really bad time, but, you know, let's try to see if we can figure something out and do this now. So we definitely want to leave that opportunity open and make sure we leave the relationship in a good place. So with that said, when we approach and do the ask, we want to have an elevator pitch put together. Think about things like, what is the time commitment involved? What do you expect from them? What are you willing to put into the relationship? These things can really help set the expectations of what this relationship is going to be and how it's going to find success. A big thing about this is the cadence of, if you don't do this and you go into it thinking, okay, we're going to meet every week and I'm going to Slack him every day, and but the person that has agreed to be your mentor is expecting you to meet once a month. By week 2, they're about frustrated as heck with you, and they want nothing more of this relationship, and it bombs out pretty spectacularly. So we need to make sure that both parties are on the same page around the expectations of what is involved and what this looks like once it actually kind of finds fruition. So extremely important to kind of set those parameters and those guidelines. I would suggest doing once you kind of whittle your list down to, say, 2 or 3 candidates, I would suggest having an informal meeting and, you know, discuss some of your career goals, some of your trajectories, and make it, again, informal. It's not like I'm vetting you to be my mentor, but, you know, we're just having lunch here. And while we're having lunch, I would like to discuss a few professional things with you and see what the response is. If they go with it and they really offer you suggestions, you know, this is probably a good fit. If they don't want to deal with that and they kind of steer the topics away to some more social type conversations, then this may be a person that just isn't really into the whole mentorship thing, and it might not be the best fit. So having that meeting can help you see that. in a way that might be difficult otherwise. Really play up why you pick them. Talk about their strengths, why you admire them, why you feel they would be a good mentor. Sincere flattery, is always welcome. So, and then finally, always look to set the agenda. This is your initiative, so you need to own it. You need to do the prep work before the meeting. You need to list out the things that you want to talk about. And my suggestion would be to email them ahead of time to say, here are the 3 or 4 things that I would like to discuss when we're getting together next week. That way it kind of sets the tone, and your mentor can kind of review the list and have some ideas coming in so that they aren't just kind of hit out in left field with some question that they really weren't considering. I've been in that situation, and it's tough. You want to give them the best advice that you can, but for whatever reason, it's not falling into place. And invariably with me, 45 minutes later, the solution pops into my head, and I have to circle back with them and say, hey, I told you this, but you should probably look at it this way, and this is probably a more effective approach. So doing that little preparation work beforehand kind of gets you out of that situation, helps your mentor help you more effectively by kind of knowing what's coming in this coming meeting. So now that we've established that relationship, what does a good mentor and a good mentee look like? What roles are you playing, and how will you find success? So as somebody being mentored, you need to look at your goals. So if you have a 3-year goal of becoming a team lead, then it's gonna be hard to wrap your arms around what that looks like. It's a lot better to take that longer term goal and then break it up into smaller SMART goals. SMART goal being specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Therefore, it's something that you can really start to gnaw and to really accomplish. And by having success at that SMART goal, it helps build you up to get to that longer term goal that you are trying to achieve. And it doesn't look so far out there and so unachievable as you're taking on these smaller goals. Also, you need to find a consistency that works for the both of you. If you're setting your meetings at 4 o'clock on a Friday, at least for me, it's not going to work. I find the weekend tends to creep into my Fridays, and that 4 o'clock time slot it can be a war zone at times, and not necessarily something that I can consistently promise you that I can always meet at 4 o'clock on a Friday. So if you schedule something and it's not working, then reschedule it. Find a new time. Maybe it's a Tuesday morning meeting before you get started for work. Maybe it's lunch on a Wednesday. Figure out what's going to work best for both of your schedules so that it just doesn't become a casualty to everything else that's going on. You need to be open to positive and constructive feedback. One thing that I find interesting is the inability to take a compliment. It's a little strange to me, but if somebody offers you a compliment, it's pretty simple. Just thank you. I appreciate you noticing, and just leave it there. It's somebody is paying you a compliment, so take it as such. And maybe more challenging is to accept tough feedback about yourself. And the key here is to remember this is not a personal thing. They are not directing an attack on you or your personality or something you hold dear. This is, I see this holding you back. You have to figure out a way, or let's the two of us figure out a way for you to get past this thing that is standing in the way of your success. So at the end of the day, you have to realize that they are there to help you and to help further you and help you achieve your goals. So view it through that lens as constructive feedback and not a personal attack on you. And I really hope this goes without saying, but this is not a therapy session. You are not to go in here and just expunge all of your personal problems on this person for the next 30 minutes. That's not what this is about. If you need a therapist, get a therapist. This time is for your professional development. So we all have stuff going on in our personal lives. At times it can be chaos. This is a chance to get away from that. This is a chance to focus on you, focus on your development, and treat it as such, and give it that priority that it needs. That's not to say that you can't talk about personal stuff. Talk about what's going on with your family, the new project your wife's taken on. You know, that stuff, it goes without saying. This is a friendly relationship. You're going to have those type discussions, and that's fine. But the context of this is in a professional place, so viewed as such. Sometimes having multiple mentors is a good thing. So an example of this, say I'm an app developer and I need to get up to speed on Angular. I might work with a senior level dev to help strengthen that skill set and to help me in my learnings and going along so that I can become more effective in my daily tasks that I have to deal with. But if I'm looking at my career trajectory, maybe I'm really interested in data and I would love to transition over to, say, doing data analytics or Power BI or something like that. So possibly I might have a second mentor that will help me start working towards that longer term goal. It's silly for me to try to find somebody that can fit both of those roles because they're very unique skill sets that one person is not going to have, or very, very few people are going to have. So reaching out to different people to mentor you in each of those different perspectives can be hugely, can help you achieve both of those goals while you're kind of in that sort of transitional mindset. And then looking at the mentor, what defines a good mentor? So a mentor isn't meant to do the work for you. They aren't going to solve your problems. They're there as a facilitator. They're there to remove roadblocks, to create bridges, to really help you along. But at the end of the day, you still have to do the work and you have to make those strides on your own. A good mentor realizes that my path is not my mentee's path. They are on their own path and I need to respect their path. So one situation where this happened with me is one person I was working with wanted to take their next step into a principal consultant. And we have two paths for that improving. One is a technical side and one is a more consulting account lead type side. And as a more consulting account focused person, I tend to view things through that lens. So when an opportunity came up to go through kind of a senior level account leadership course that we had at Improving, I was all over it. I presented it to him. I said, you need to go through this and I think it'll be hugely beneficial for you and you need to check this out. And not even really do you want to check this out, but just you need to check this out. He went to the meeting, he came back, he's like, thanks for the let me know, but it's not for me. So if I had stepped back and actually looked at the situation objectively, I would have said, this is me trying to put my path on him and not really listening to what he wants to do. The approach that should have been taken was to present him with the opportunity and say, this is a really interesting opportunity that I think can help you. I know you're not looking to go in this direction, but it might be worth checking out. Drop it with them, let them take it from there. Don't hide your failures. I personally find that I learn more from the things that I failed at than my successes. And that is hugely helpful to talk to your mentee about those problems that you have overcome throughout your career. And don't hide those things away, because that can help them learn from those failures and help them not make those same mistakes as they are coming up along their path. Like we said in the last slide, definitely be honest. Criticism can be hard to hear, but it's extremely necessary to improve. So we can never be afraid to be honest. The key here is to be tactful, to be very, very conscious that this is a open, safe space to communicate, and there's no judgment involved. We need to have mutual respect for one another so that when we hear something tough about ourselves, we know it's coming from a good place and not somebody criticizing us. because that's the first way, or that's the easiest way to have somebody shut down and say, okay, I don't want to hear this from you anymore, because obviously this is an attack on me. And that's not where we're trying to go. A mentor is there to motivate and inspire. They are trying to help our people reach their fullest potential. They are challenging them to push them outside of their comfort zone. Being uncomfortable is part of this. You can't achieve those next levels without venturing outside of what you know and what makes you where things are good. So it's up to us to help give them that push. Show up. I've got probably 20 odd appointments on my calendar any given week. And if that mentorship session falls on a certain day, like Mondays and Thursdays can be really bad. If I see that on my calendar, sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, how can I even get in the mindset for that? It can sometimes be something else on your calendar. And the important thing to realize here is that although at times this may just be something else on your calendar, for the person you're mentoring, this may be the most important thing on their calendar all week, maybe even all month, depending on what they're getting out of this. So it is incumbent upon us to engage, to participate, to learn from our mentee. Above all, be present. Make sure that we are giving benefit whenever we are meeting, and we are making this the most productive session that we can for that person, because this should be important to both of us. And lastly, we need to keep their goals in focus. So one instance of this in my world, one of the people I was working with was trying to get their PMP certification, and I had heard of, at Improving, we do training classes. So I'd heard of an opportunity where a seat was open in one of those classes. So I, put the two people together and made sure that they were enrolled, and the timing worked out and everything. And so they ended up going through the class and getting their certification. So, and that was just as easy of just keeping my ears open to find that opportunity and to connect those two things together. And it wasn't difficult. There wasn't much to do on my side, but if I hadn't been actively listening for that opportunity, it would have been missed, and the person that I would have been working with is still trying to figure out, how do I achieve this goal when I could have easily made it happen for them. So our last slide, outside of our closing slides, is if you don't have a mentorship program within your organization, how exactly would you go about starting one? So the first thing to look at is, what is the goals of your program? What problem are you trying to solve? Are you trying to be more effective in onboarding or integrating your members of the team? Maybe you're trying to identify and grow your future leaders. My hope is you're trying to do both, but depending on what that answer is going to show how you're going to tailor your program, depending on what results you're trying to get. For your participants, it's helpful to identify the skill sets, their strengths, their personalities, so you can nicely match up a mentor with a mentee and make sure that it's a good fit. And your mentor should be people who are dedicated, believers, and on the path to success. I firmly believe that this shouldn't be a mandatory thing for, say, your higher level managers within the organization. Some people are not good mentors. I have seen that myself, and by forcing them into that role, we potentially are hurting the people that they are working with, because we're not giving them an effective mentor to help them along with their journey. So they are slipping through the cracks, and ultimately we have failed because we put them with a person we know wouldn't help them succeed. From the other side of the equation, I think there should be a mandatory component for the people being mentored, the younger members of the organization. Not in such that you have to have a higher career goal and path, but more to say, this is your person to go to if you're having problems in the organization, you have questions, you need help in some way. there was a person that I've worked with who was very, very adamant this wasn't for them. Whatever you're pitching me, I'm not buying. I am a good team member. I'm good at what I do. I have zero aspirations above and beyond what I'm doing. Great, fine. Every organization needs those people. I would never come back to that person and say, but are you sure? You sure you don't want to do this kind of stuff? Ultimately, that's okay. But having that connection and checking in with them on a regular basis, I found out that the client they're working with, they're a full stack developer and they were doing all web API work and they weren't happy. And by figuring that out, now I can run that up the flagpole and say, hey guys, their next assignment, or maybe even on their current assignment, can we find something more full stack, more UX, more UI related to help them feel more fulfilled in what they're doing? Because the problem is they're going to roll off that account, and they've been known for the past year, 2 years as the web API expert, and thus their next assignment's probably going to be more web API. And without realizing that limitation, and if they're not happy doing that, we may be setting them up for failure, and they may end up leaving the organization because we never asked them, are you happy with what you're doing? Matchmaking, I feel like when you're trying to pair people up, you should have the flexibility to allow people to match themselves. So for me, there was one of our community meetings, I met this guy and we talked for a little bit, and I could tell within the first 10 minutes, this guy was like ready to light the world on fire. He was very impressive. So I went to our program administrator and I said, can I work with this person? I feel like we would work really well together. And he paired us up, and for the past year, it's been an awesome match. And I've really enjoyed working with this person. I enjoy working with people that I think are the next leaders of our company and helping grow them and find their path. So you should always leave that option open when people find a good match to go ahead and make the match themselves. You need to train your mentors. Don't just throw them to the wolves and expect that they're going to figure all this out. We need to have a structure around this. We need to have a guide. They need to know what success looks like. Because again, we talked about that some people aren't necessarily good mentors, but some people might want to be mentors, but don't have the tools, don't have the skills to be effective in that role. So it's up to us to make sure that we put them in a place to succeed. And then finally, we need somehow to assess these relationships. Is it working? Is there a better fit? Try as we might, we may pen somebody up and it looks like a perfect match, and then at the end of the day, it doesn't work for whatever reason. We need to be able to step back, say, is this working, and repair people up if it just isn't. So we need to have that built into our program. So finally, I've included this deck will be, I'll post it to my Twitter, which is ASP Programmer, probably shortly after we wrap up here. And it's also on my website, markrunyon.com. It'll be under one of the SQL Saturday logos. But three resources here if you want to check them out. First one is an article I wrote on mentoring, the benefits, to kind of rehash some of the things we talked about here today, as well as how to find a mentor, link 2, and link 3 is what 5 qualities do great mentors have. I thought those articles were really nicely done. And then finally, the last piece here, 3 ways to get in contact with me. You can email me, mark.runyon@improving.com. At LinkedIn, I am software architect, and Twitter, I am ASP programmer. So I would love to connect with you all. Twitter is probably, or excuse me, LinkedIn's probably the best place to talk or email. If you have any questions, whether it be tomorrow or 6 months or a year down the line, I view this as an extremely important piece of everyone's career development. So I want to make sure you get this right and it is effective for you. So please don't hesitate to reach out. Obviously, we can do questions right now too. My final thing to say before we wrap up is SQL Saturday Memphis is tomorrow. I will be in the early slots, the 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, giving a talk on getting started in public speaking and specifically conference speaking. So if that's something you are looking at getting involved in, please join. It is free, it is virtual. So I'd love to see you all there. So thank you very much. And do we have any questions?
There is nothing in the queue.
Okay. Well, I thank you all for your time, and hope you have a great weekend.